was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, and it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us, and we had nothing before us. We were all going direct to heaven, we were all going direct the other way. In short, the period was so far like the present period that some of its noisiest authorities insisted on its being received for good or for evil in the superlative degree of comparison only. Classmates and professor, we are going to present the book report A Tales of Two Cities by Charles Dickens.
In 1775, Mr. Lorry, a London banker, is meeting a woman named Lucy Manette to take her to see her father, a French doctor, who has been released from prison after 18 years. The novel moves forward to 1780, where a man named Charles Darnay is being tried for treason. Lucy and Lorry are both witnesses for the prosecution, but when defense attorney Mr. Stryver points out the strong resemblance between his assistant, Sidney Carton, and Darnay, the jury acquits Darnay on reasonable doubt.
Darnay and Lucy quickly fall in love, and he endears himself to Dr. Manette. Darnay, however, is not who he says he is. He is actually a French nobleman, the son of the Marquis de Evermond, but he has renounced his family name. While Darnay is building a family and home in England with Lucy, the French peasants continue to revolt. In particular, St. Anthony wine shop owners Ernest and Madame Defarge are leaders in the revolt.
On July 14, 1789, the revolutionaries stormed the Bastille fortress. Defarge goes to the cell where Dr. Manette had been held and searches for something. Shortly after, the Marquis Chateau burns down, and the peasants arrest Monsieur Gavel, the tax collector and caretaker. He writes to Darnay asking for help. Darnay decides to return to France in secret so as not to worry Lucy. Darnay is arrested in France and imprisoned in La Force. The revolutionaries figure out that he is actually the Marquis Saint Evermond. Lucy and Dr. Manette arrive and visit Mr. Lorry at the Tellson's location. Dr. Manette is a martyr for the cause because of his time in the Bastille. He uses this to try to get Charles out of prison, but he remains there for another year and 3 months. He is acquitted of his charges, but is soon rearrested before he can go back to England.
Miss Pross and Jerry Cruncher come across Miss Pross' brother Solomon, who now goes by John Barsad. Sidney Carton appears and blackmails Barsad into helping him get in to see Charles in prison. He knows that Roger Clyde is still alive and that Barsad is spying for both the revolutionaries and the English government. At the next trial, Charles is sentenced to death because his father and uncle raped Madame Defarge's sister and killed her brother-in-law and brother.
Dr. Manette was asked to help save Madame Defarge's sister, and hears the story. So he writes a letter about the Marquis' crimes to the Minister of State. He is imprisoned after. Madame Defarge tries to kill Lucy and her daughter, but is shot by Miss Prose. Meanwhile, right before Charles' execution, Cartoon drags him and switches places with Charles, sacrificing his own life instead, finally finding a sense of purpose in his life.
Well, as you could listen, this is the tale of two cities. First of all, we need to talk about this author, this important author that is Charles Dickens. Could you please, the next slide. Yeah, Charles John Hoffman Dickens was born in 1812 and he died in 1870. He was an English writer and also a social critic. Even though he left school to work in a factory, that was because his father wasted money. He liked to waste money, so was imprisoned in because of the doubts that he had, his father. So even though he left school early and he got this lack of education, he was able to write 15 novels, 5 novellas, and hundreds of short stories, and also he edited a weekly journal during 20 years. He always stand up for children's rights because of his tough life and also because of education and other social reforms. And an interesting fact of this book is that it's classified as a historical fiction. This means that it's based on an historical period or that happened, for example, here the French Revolution, but he created this story, this made-up story, this fiction. So it is called historical fiction, and he only has 2 books. Okay, so starting with the setting, one of the most important things in here is that this story happened in 2 places, in England and France. Why is this so important? It's because Charles Dickens tries to make that a comparison between these 2 cities. In here, London is like the perfect city in which you can live maybe happily and people have a lot of money, but in Paris we have chaos. We have chaos because of the French Revolution, as Carolina said. So we have the characters that live in both cities, so they are going to act according to the situations that each city is living. Okay, so first we have Charles Darnley, and he's a nobleman. He had like a perfect life because he was born rich. He has a big house, and his parents were noblemen also. Another thing that we have to say about this character is that he is very handsome. And that was important because if you have money and you were handsome, it's like you were perfect. Something like sometimes happen now, right? If you have a pretty face and money, you can do whatever you want, even if you are not like respectful with others. But this man was like a perfect man. And on the other side we have Sidney Garton, and he is a man that looks exactly like physically as Charles Darnley. He is handsome, but he doesn't have enough money.
Instead of that, their parents died, so he had to live in an orphanage. And their personalities are like different, because Charles is a person who always helps them, who always tries to get help from others. I mean, his life is like perfect, but that's because other people. One thing that I forgot to mention about Charles is that he rejected his family. He said that he doesn't want the money, he doesn't want the land, he just wants to live as Charles Darnay, as a person who will try to fight for things. And Lucy Manette, she is Dr. Manette's daughter. She is like an angel. His personality is like an angel, and he physically, they said that she's like an angel. He's beautiful, and she likes to have this life in house, like being a good wife one day, because then she get married with Charles Darnay. And we were talking with Carolina about something that is like our opinion. We thought that maybe Charles Dickens tries to write about something related with his life. Like he was dating with a really beautiful girl, like Lucy. But also, this is totally a personal opinion. We also think that maybe those characters are Charles Dickens' personality. Like at the outside, he's like Charles Darnay, but inside he has like the characteristic of Sidney, because Sidney is like depressed person. He thinks that nothing in his life is good for him. Like he loses his parents. He's living a life that is not good. So only bad things can happen to him. So that's why we thought that maybe Charles, these are both like characteristic of himself.
May I add something?
Yeah, sure.
We also were thinking about the childhood of Charles Dickens. Before his father was in prison, Charles Dickens, he was rich, but because of his father wasting money, then they were poor. So we have this before and after represented here in Charles Darnay. That is the first period of his life when he was rich, but then we have the after the prison. His father was in prison. That is Sidney Carton. That represents this child that was in an orphan and had this really tough life.
Okay, the themes of the novel. Well, the most relevant theme is society and class. Here, the author portrays the huge social gap between classes. There was a clear difference between aristocracy and peasantry. On the one hand, aristocracy were people, those people enjoyed of some privilege of that time. They enjoyed the best time of the age by oppressing the lower classes, by corrupting, by many vices of that era. And on the other hand, we have the peasantry, the lower classes. Well, they were the oppressed people. They suffering by the mistreatment from aristocracy. So lower classes people suffering, and then that suffering turns into hatred and a desire of transformation. So for that reason, they take revenge in order to change their conditions of life. So that revenge triggers warfare. Warfare implies death, and well, in this case, there was a kind of twist between classes, because before the aristocracy was the class that used to mistreat the lower classes, but then the lower classes take their revenge, and they started to mistreat the aristocracy, the upper classes. Well, it is important in this point that, well, the author portrays how ordinary people were driven by their suffering to become implacable murderers of aristocracy. Well, because at the beginning, the honor, the aristocracy had the honor, and then they had to undergo the dishonor of their people. And it is important to mention that death is portrayed at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of the story. At the beginning, the marquis, the representation of the nobility, he did well, a poor child is killed by him when he's running over the street, running over the child. So this is the first representation of death, and then the warfare. And at the end of the story, when Sidney Carton takes the place of Charles Darnay, that is the other representation of death. Another important theme is love, and here we can notice how is the most outstanding characteristic of the Dickens writings, because he is able to portray beauty in the midst of ugliness. For example, ugliness would be the conflict between classes, and beauty would be love. So, well, the power of love is exemplified by Sidney Carton and his self-sacrifice, because he wanted to help the woman he loves. He wanted to protect her from suffering, from unhappiness, because he takes the place of her husband. He gives up his life in order to help Lucy. Well, resurrection is another important theme. Well, here resurrection is portrayed again by Sidney Carton, because he allows Charles Darnay to be alive, because he was condemned to death. He had a death sentence. And resurrection is also portrayed by Dr. Manet, because when he was in prison in the Bastille, he was kind of dead in that place, and that place was his grave. Well, family is another important thing. Well, here the importance Dr. Manet's family. This is the focus of the story, the preservation of that family. Next, please. Well, the symbols. The broken wine flask. Well, when the wine flask is spilled in the street, it has two symbols, two meanings. Sorry. Well, the first one is that the wine spilled in the street means blood. That is the blood of revolution. The blood that was spilled during the French Revolution. And another meaning is it has to do with people's hunger, because when the wine is spilled in the street, people run in order to drink the wine because they were hungry. And wine is a symbol of joy for people, and especially at that time. The other symbol is Madame Defarge's knitting. Well, Madame Defarge was the symbol of French Revolution. She used to knit in the wine shop, and the wine shop was the meeting place when they were preparing the revolution against aristocracy. So in that place, Madame Defarge used to knit, and that means that he was preparing a kind of hit list of the people that would be killed during revolution. So she used to record her murderous plan by knitting, by her knitting pattern. The other symbols? Well, the Marquise, this is the Marquise of everyone. He was the representation of nobility, the upper classes. He represents everything that lower classes hated. There is cruelty, arrogance. The other symbol is the guillotine. Well, this is the symbol of French Revolution. Well, this was a machine used to behead people. Well, it is a symbol of death in itself.
Another thing now related with characters, themes, is that in this story, at the end, Sidney gives his life to save Charles. And this is because Charles was in prison 3 times. And as Sidney loves, as Maribel said, love is one of the most important things in this tale. Sidney loves Lucy. So that's why he gave his life to save Charles, because they look exactly the same physically. Another thing is Mrs. Defarge. She was the main leader. What? The leader of the French Revolution? Yeah, because she was the most, or she was the person who has to hate the most the aristocracy, because Charles' father was the one who raped her sister. So everything is linked with the themes, the French Revolution, and the characteristic or the personalities of each character.
Yeah. Okay, next we are going to talk about the literary devices. At the beginning, Maribel said something that it was this. It was the best of times, it was the and so on and so forth. And this one represents repetition. We have it was the, it was the, it was the. And it's continue repeat. And also we have a paradox, because we are talking about the best of times, but also about the worst of times. We are talking about different things. But at the same time, they are occurring. Then we have symbolism. The time was to come when that wine too would be spilled on the street stones, and when the strains of it would be read upon many there. Here we have what Maribel said, that was the wine represented the blood, that what was going to be spilled because of the French Revolution, when all these lower class had this revenge against aristocracy, and they killed them. Next slide, please. Then we have allegory. Yes, it took 4 men, all 4 of logs, with gorgeous decoration, and the chief of them unable to exist with fewer than 2 gold watches in his pocket, emulative of the noble and chaste fashion set by Monsignor, to conduct the happy chocolate to Monsignor's lips. Monsignor was the representation of the wealthy social class. We know that Monsignor was ambitious, he raped, he was a really bad man, and he represented the aristocracy and all the stuff they had. For example, here we have 2 gold watches. At that time, that was almost impossible for a normal class, I mean the middle class or the lower class. So, then we have Simon. A footstep in the snow, Madame Defarge, I salute you, citizen. Citizeness, from the doctor, I salute you, citizen. This in passing, nothing more. Madame Defarge gone like a shadow over the white road. We have that she was gone, really slowly and silently. Next slide, please. Then we have irony. She entertained herself besides with such humane achievements as sentencing a youth to have his hands cut off, his tongue turned out with pincers, and his body burned alive, because he had not kneeled down in the rain to do honor to a dirty procession of monks. Here we have an irony, because this action wouldn't be done neither by humans nor by religious people, by monks. And then we have personification. The Dover road lay, as to him, beyond the Dover mail, as it lumbered up Shooter's Hill. Lumbering is related to the way we walk. That means lumbering, the way we walk. So in here, Charles Dickens tried to describe this road that is moving around. I mean, it's lumbering.